So maybe you're just like, you're able to charm them into doing that where I can't pull that off.
So everything is on YouTube as of now because this is my baby. And
we then used the money that came from the minting proceeds and put that into the community treasury. Yeah, well, obviously all the younger generations on YouTube, they think we're dinosaurs for using Apple Podcasts. I'm like, yeah, well, if Gollum ever goes to like $3,000, I probably have a couple grand there worth of dust.
welcome to Digital Duniya podcast, Cogsy. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. This is quite interesting. This is our first interview with an Anon. So really excited to do this episode with you.
Wow, I didn't know that. I couldn't even imagine that I would be your first one. I thought I can't get anybody to show their face on screen. So maybe you're just like, you're able to charm them into doing that where I can't pull that off.
No, I'll share you the secret. I've done 4 interviews. We just launched in January of this year. So maybe I'll get lots of those as I go forward, but it's a good start. I can't complain.
Have you been starting with big name brand companies or crypto projects, or what have you? I haven't listened to the first 4 yet.
No, so 2 of them are published. So the first one was with lead researcher of Celestia. So I was lucky enough to get him on. The second one I did, and which is posted, is Rocket Pool.
Oh, cool.
And the third one, I'm still keeping it under wraps because I'm just it should come pretty soon, and that's a surprise. So
all right, nice.
Might be coming in today or tomorrow. It's a really attractive project and fast and upcoming, so watch that out.
Are we able to subscribe to you like on Apple Podcasts, or where do you publish everything?
So everything is on YouTube as of now because this is my baby, and there's so much involved from production, post-production, launching. I'm just barely able to make it up to YouTube, but I want to get onto all the podcasts, be it Apple, Spotify, and all the rest. But I'm still struggling to doing that. So hang on, I will do my best, and we should be there on all the different podcast platforms.
Good. That'll be awesome when you do that. I mean, YouTube is good. I post all of our calls, our community calls that we do on YouTube. I just record everything on OBS and then just upload it, and then go through and add chapters to it. But there's a I don't know if you know Garrett from Curve Market Cap.
Yes.
His show, he does the Leviathan News Network. They put it on Apple Podcasts, and I found that because it's convenient where I don't have to have a window open to be able to listen to it, and I can turn it on, turn my phone screen on, have my headphones on, and listen to it. I tend to listen to his show even more than I do my own recordings because it's so convenient with being able to play it in the background and not have to have a window open.
I hear you, and I started my journey about 5 years ago, listening to podcasts, right? But I've realized that more and more, I don't know whether it's just me, I've shifted. So my podcast consumption on Apple Podcast has gone down, and I consume a lot more on YouTube because it's just convenient, because there could be graphics, there could be screen shared, and it's more engaging audio and visual. So I could be wrong, but that was me.
Right. Yeah. Well, obviously all the younger generations on YouTube, they think we're dinosaurs for using Apple Podcasts.
No, I hear you. So Cogsy, let's jump into it. Let's start with yourself. Can you introduce yourself and how your Web3 journey has been so far?
Well, bloody. I mean, so far, yeah, it's been a lot of ups and downs, but mostly downs. Kind of the story that you hear from most people, especially people that have been in DeFi for more than 2 years. It's not a really fun time for DeFi. Even with you feel like you miss out on the entire bull market, and it's depressing to the point to where you work your ass off for an extended period of time, and then you see the market take off, and they feel like you're being left behind. So we're all kind of coping together, but it's really a good group of people to be with if you're gonna all be sad together. And we just figure we'll just put our heads down and build through it, and that's what the good projects are doing. So I started in the early stuff in Bitcoin, didn't ever mine or anything, and just started buying it and trading it in, I think 17 was when I really started getting involved, and I went to a convention in 17, and it was which year was the ICO craze? Was that 17? Okay, so it was in the peak of the ICO craze, and I went to San Francisco, went to a convention, and everything was ICO. There was the vendor floor you know, you can imagine it being, you know, 75,000 square feet or whatever of vendors. And every single booth that you went to, they were selling a new product, and you were going to get a token for it. And you know, they used rev share like it was. They were not afraid to say rev share back then, and they could say, you know, they're like they were fractionalizing everything with tokens, and like, I mean, I just can't even imagine now looking back. As it feels like it was 20 years ago, and it was, you know, it wasn't that long. It was only 7 years ago. So up until that convention, we were just trading Bitcoin and ETH on Coinbase, you know, like it was just like, it was, you know, so new, and bought some Bitcoin early and then just kind of forgot about it. And that was like when it did that first big spike, you know, it was like super exciting, and, you know, made a few $100 or whatever. And like, it like thought it was amazing that you could have that kind of a move. And then after I started the ICO craze burned and we crashed and had that crash, then I started really paying attention to the projects and starting to get into Twitter and Discord. And what my main like intro to everything that I'm connected to now was from Convex. So that was the next bull market after 17, you know. So from 17 to 21, I was just grinding, and like we were trading ICP and Golem and Augur, and I mean all this ancient stuff that you like is, you know, it's funny, Golem was up like 35% yesterday. I still have it on my screen for some reason. I have no idea why. I think I have like some dust Golem on an ancient, you know, ledger somewhere. I'm like, yeah, well, if Golem ever goes to like $3,000, you know, I probably have a couple grand there worth of dust. And just like, you know, the post ICO crash stuff that survived through and ground through that, and then got to Convex. And once I got into the Curve ecosystem, which is where we are squarely planted right now, that was like the launch point for me of like becoming part of a real, you know, ecosystem and community. And then, you know, made it through the Convex the token generation event. And I was in Miami at that Bitcoin convention, like the super cringy one in Miami every year. I can't remember what it's called. I was at that convention when Convex ICO'd, or had the TGE, and it went to 21 or whatever that first night. And I was in a cab or in an Uber in Miami during that. And like I was at a Bitcoin convention talking to all these Bitcoiners, and I was talking about ETH-based stuff, and they had never heard of any of it. They acted like I was completely insane. Like it was like I was speaking a different language, you know. It's like you're going into Apple headquarters and talking to them about Windows or DOS, like at the beginning, right? You know, like they thought
it's completely alien to Bitcoiners what Ethereum does, right? The line is getting blurred day by day, but I can completely understand. Back in the day, it would be like, what? What do you mean?
They thought it was well, you know, crazy. Like they didn't think I was just wrong. I was crazy. So that was only 21. That wasn't that long ago. That was only 3 years ago. And but they're still like that today. And it turns out they were right. I mean, you know, what was I? I didn't know that back in 21 I was supposed to just get rid of everything I had and just buy Bitcoin and then not sell it and go away. So Saylor was right. All the crazy, you know, toxic maximalists were right. You know, every whack job that spoke at that convention was correct, including the one that screams about the Venezuelan thing and all. I mean, it's nuts. The whole Bitcoin ecosystem is hilarious, and it's definitely entertaining. And then, then you tell them that like the second or third biggest TVL of Bitcoin is wrapped Bitcoin on the ETH network, and then that sends them into a frenzy. They self-immolate when you tell them that there's like, you know, there's more Bitcoin wrapped than there is in circulation on exchanges.
That is like, you know, this is as wild as it can get. And what just to give you a little bit background, Cogsy, with us, like, you know, our podcast is predominantly in Hindi, even though, like, you know, some of the interviews with the teams or founding members that we have been able to get, those are in English. But we are reaching out to an audience which is still quite at initial phase of the curve. So their learning journey is not as high as what yours has been, or some other people, including myself. So it's really important what you just mentioned, right? Because history keeps on repeating. So every new wave that we have of new people joining in, they go through exactly the same things. So that's why I feel like, you know, your experiences, thank you for sharing that, will actually help people understand that, okay, this is not unique to them. This happens to all the people all the time in different cycles.
Yeah, it's like it just repeats itself. I mean, it's pretty crazy that it's so similar. History doesn't repeat; it rhymes. You know that quote that they use for every cycle that we go through. But people's individuals' journey, it seems like I hear a lot from my friends saying that they kind of went through the same thing. They almost always started with Coinbase. You know, the onboarding process, even if it was back in 17 or 16. They started with Coinbase. They didn't start with a hardware wallet. They didn't start with self custody. You know, and so I can't imagine what's it for the Hindi community or the Hindi speaking community, which I assume is a lot of it is in India, correct?
Well, I was under that impression as well. Fortunately for me, it is probably 25% of the population in the world, right? So you can find obviously
Everywhere.
Yeah, so subcontinent India is the major chunk, but you go to Europe, you go to Middle East, you go to US, you go to Europe, they are spread across. So I feel like, I was constantly missing that because I was like, oh, this, like, you probably have experienced something similar, right? The more we learn, the more we go down the rabbit hole, the more we realize there's a lot more left,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, how do I tell these stories? Because over the last 4 years, I've been telling the same stories to hundreds of people, friends and family around. And I've reached to the point where I'm just tired because I'm constantly repeating myself, right? And then I thought, like, I'm so consumed by it and there's no material content for that particular segment. It was a long journey, basically, to convince myself in my head that I should take this path, but here we are, and that's where I jump into. So how did you end up being with Llamas?
So after the Convex, if people are going to research, if they ever want to go back and look at what, they kind of piece together what I talked about here. I usually talk to almost all Curve and Convex ecosystem people, so it's I just rattle stuff off like it's just normal operating procedure. But I should be clear, if for people that have never traded this kind of stuff or been involved in any of these yield bearing type of deals. So the Curve ecosystem, the Curve token is the backbone of the stable coin swapping market almost globally. It's the biggest platform for swapping stables. And so everything that is Curve related has to do with generating yield off of, stable volume. And so the Convex project came out and was a token that was put on top of Curve that was a liquid wrapper that created a way to take 4-year locked Curve tokens and be able to trade them, and then became a yield boosting project. So I was involved with that token for a couple, for a good run throughout the entire bull market of 21 and 22 or whatever it was, whichever one the last one was. And I can't even look back that far on the charts; it makes me crazy. And then after that we went into the bear, then we decided that we would work on an NFT project. And, late to the game, obviously, because the NFT craze was also over with by then. Nothing like building an NFT project in an NFT bear market. So that's what it must feel like for founders that are trying to build projects, during the bear of like any specific thing that's not trendy at the time. So the Llama is the unofficial / the obvious mascot of the Curve ecosystem. And there had been a couple of other Llama projects, and you've probably seen Curve market cap. Garrett has a listing of all the Llama related projects that are based in Curve. And there's like a Llama NFT from a long time ago that was from several, for 4 or 5 years ago, that's still floating around. And then there's DeFi Llama, which is a great website that has statistics about all of the DeFi ecosystem. And then there's most people that are in the Curve ecosystem, either providing liquidity or coding or working for the company or whatever, they are referred to as llamas. So we just took that as we needed to create a NFT project that would be like the unofficial PFP of people in our ecosystem. And that was the idea, is that it should just be like cool llamas that we can all use for our PFPs. And if anybody looks at it that knows the ecosystem, they'll see that and be like, oh, this is a Curve guy or Convex guy. Like, they can see that, right? just by glancing at your PFP. So that project then built and started last year. I mean, I can't remember, like I think it was May when we did our May of last year. So
2023 May.
Yeah, so it's been a year coming up here in a few days of the actual auction that we created. So we used Midjourney. We did a bunch of community. Like first we started a Discord, and then we did a bunch of contests for people to be able to create llamas. And in Midjourney, gave everybody the prompts, gave them the parameters. And then we had people enter in ones that they had come up with on Midjourney. And then we started narrowing it down to use V3 and use specific prompts that made them all look, into a similar, that gave them all a feeling of being in the same collection. And we ended up with 1,111 of them. And they're all one of ones, all unique. Obviously, they're on the ETH network. And
Cogsy, can I interject? There's something that I want to tell you and also to our viewers, right? So for everyone listening in, we have already done episode on Curve Finance, Convex Finance in our DeFi special. So that's there. And all the details, we have done a separate podcast just only for Llama NFT as well. So if you want to dive deeper into understanding what that includes and how it works, it's all in there. And I'm sure there will be a link around here for you to deep dive into that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we need to do some. Definitely need to do some shameless self promotion, right? Like we need to. Hey guys, don't forget to go to my. Can you translate this to Hindi for me? Like how do I put my web address in there? So the end result was 1,111 of these PFPs, and the idea was that we ran an auction system starting back in May of last year, and we did we went through and originally we did an airdrop for like the founder of Curve, Mitch, and then a bunch of the Curve 15, 20, 30, however many there were of people that were important in the Curve ecosystem. We airdropped those to them, so they had their special, they were the very special ones. And then we did another set of airdrops for partners, for people that we thought we were going to eventually be working with. So Stake DAO and Conic and Frax has several of them. And so we dropped a bunch of specific ones for protocol-specific llamas into different wallets for that, and then started the allow list and whitelist process and started the auction. So we were running auctions, I think it was 2 months. It was 2 months, 24 hours a day. There was no stop, and there was always an auction up, and they would last for an hour. And then if people bid on the auctions in the last 5 minutes, they would go into overtime and add 5 more minutes. So we had a bunch of crazy overtime, overtimes that lasted for like an hour, an extra hour of people bidding against each other. And we then used the money that came from the minting proceeds and put that into the community treasury, which you could also link if you want to on the show here, and I'll send you the link for that. And sure. So it's a shared treasury that is shared amongst all 1,111 llamas, and we raised like $3 million. So it ended up being a very successful initial sale, and blew everything out of the water from what we thought how it was gonna go. I never imagined that it was gonna be this kind of. I think the average price ended up being like 1.8 or 1.7 Ether.
Sorry, jumping in again. And you are so right. I joined in Llama maybe in January of 2023, and I was following you guys since then. And I was like, I don't know why, because maybe my affiliation with Curve and Convex, I've been influenced like yourself in that journey as well. But I was towards the later end of 2022, and I was just like, this is something really interesting. And I saw the whole process of how it got into auction, and if I correct me if I'm wrong, the whole understanding is on an average, if you divide by the treasury, each NFT is roughly around 1.3, 1.4 each.
Right. Yeah. The intrinsic value, if you calculate it in, treasury value, current yield, divided by 1,111. Yeah. So that's kind of your floor, right? You expect that to stay as your floor. And they've gone there. They've gone under the floor, which is the favorite thing for NFT projects to do. I don't know if you've definitely been around and seen this, but it's hilarious, right? Like there's so many projects that have that their tokens or their NFTs are trading under their community treasury, right? Like they're building in some sort of a risk ratio, and the market is so crazy about how it does that. But yes, we've been lucky to stay, in the high ones, above like 1.5, 1 point, obviously 1.3. Now the treasury itself is all in curve related. It's like 90% in curve related assets. Curve, Convex, StakeDAO, other big partners that we had coming in, and those we haven't really kept up with Bitcoin. I know that it's going to come as a surprise here, but the DeFi ecosystem has underperformed as a whole over the last 6 months. So hopefully the day is going to turn, and everybody's going to want to have yield bearing assets and go jump into the Curve ecosystem again. And we're positioned for that. And we're at the point now where we're all in Curve, and that's why we created this project, and we're in for the long haul, and this is how it goes. So there's the whims of the market go up and down depending on what's trendy at the time. Right now it's dog coins, obviously, and Ansem and Solana, and so you can't keep up with them. So you just got to keep building and keep providing value to people and keeping your holders happy and hope for the best. 80% of the people in our ecosystem are anonymous, and they don't use their real names. I'm just the podcast guy. Yeah, I'm the Discord mod, and also so how do you build a resume if you don't want to use an email? The thing that's important is, how are we going to add value for Curve? How are we going to grow DeFi? How are we going to grow ETH?
I think each cycle just brings in so much of different flavors, right? What Llama NFT is currently doing, and what's the goal over next 6 to 12 months.